Hey, folks. Welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news, the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Yeah, it's like 3 in the morning, so yeah, I'm a little tired. But anyway, we are going to talk about the worst game of the year. So we already did the worst company of the year. I will try to remember to link that down below in the description so you guys can take a look at that. But yeah, we need to talk about, I think, the worst game of the year too, because yeah, this year has been bipolar. We've had some amazing games, but we have been also seen some amazing stuff in the gaming industry, and it's something I think too we should keep up with. So there's been some amazing choices out there, of course, but honestly, I choose Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And we're going to go through why. So you can like, sub, all that jazz. If you enjoy the content at the end, go ahead and like, share. Sharing too, I think, really helps out the algorithm. Don't forget to, like the content as well, just to give the algorithm a boost there, and it'll help promote the channel. And I appreciate all of you guys that actually do that stuff. I see those on the channel that do that, and I appreciate that very much because I enjoy what I do here on the channel. So, but hey, let's go ahead and get into this. So yeah, Kill the Justice League. So yeah, we're going to dig into the game itself, the development, and the money lost. And I think each one of these aspects is important because it kind of gives a full perspective of why this game fell so hard, which is incredible. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So the game itself, Suicide Squad is a big name. We also had the first movie not too long. Well, yeah, within the last decade. And it had done really well. Releasing in 2016, it made over $700 million at the box office. So Warner Brothers was really happy about this. Of course, they wanted to make some more money. They also had Birds of Prey with Harley Quinn and some other characters that was slotted to release in January of 2022. But this movie roughly broke even. And I think, in my opinion, it was just the marketing. Because I didn't even know this was a like Suicide Squad or like Harley Quinn movie. Birds of Prey, like I had no idea what that was, and so it wasn't until later it was like, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense. But yeah, this movie unfortunately basically just broke even. Suicide Squad, the game, was announced originally for August of 2020, and so we would have had those two movies. We would have had the game after that. And Rocksteady was making the game. And so with Rocksteady, everyone was super excited about this because they had made the Arkham series, which is very well known throughout most players, people that have been playing for a while. And the graphics still hold up really good today. And the game mechanics and the gameplay and the immersion that you have as Batman and the characters that you interact with. I still have to play these, but that's what I keep hearing from folks. And the ratings, too, they show it. Honestly, they show it. They have very high ratings. And so with Warner Brothers, they enjoyed their big hit with their first movie. The second movie was okay, but why not pick one of the biggest DC game developers and also make a game? It made perfect sense, right? The idea was basically to make Suicide Squad. Also, the movie Justice League was coming out. This was in 2021. And then, and that was honestly a pretty big movie. But, we had basically three products of Suicide Squad. We had of 2020, 2021, and also 2022. And so things were looking pretty good. All of these things were supposed to be coming out all at the same time. There was also another... was it the Justice League? I think it was. Yeah, Suicide Squad, the Justice League. That was coming out in 21. So yeah, Warner Brothers had a lot of IP that was around the Suicide Squad, around these characters, and the whole idea and plan was to basically be making movies. And so yeah, they had a lot of stuff lined up, of course. The development of the game, so this started first in 2016. The first movie dropped, and it was between, the game was going to be between the first movie, Warner Brothers, excuse me, it was between the first movie. Warner Brothers got excited and announced development in 2020 about Suicide Squad. So we may guess around 2017 or 2018 is actually when development started, because this would make a little bit more sense with the first movie coming out in 2016 and making over $700 million. And then, of course, further iterations of those movies, and then also having the game. And so, yeah, again, all of these were coming out roughly within the same time span. And the idea is that they could honestly make a ton of money. And so the game was originally set to release in October of 2022. The game was delayed to May of 2023. This was a 7-month delay. And then it was delayed again in February of 2024. This was a 9-month delay. The fact that we had another delay, and it was a longer delay than the last one, really didn't bode very well. We were also starting to get some rumors and some leaks that there was some kind of internal turmoil at Rocksteady, that people were leaving. There were also things too with, of course, COVID that we had to deal with. A lot of people were moving jobs just to make more money, or they could work remotely now, or they were still trying to fight for that. So yeah, the development cycle for this game also wasn't great, and this is also partly why it was pushed back. But honestly, the fact that the second delay was longer than the last one, almost an entire year, that just honestly really worried me, because rarely do we ever see games that have multiple delays actually turn out well, especially recently. Like within the last decade, when this happens, it is not a good sign, because it shows that things aren't going well, and the entire schedule that they've had is now out the window. We found out, again, folks were leaving, the lockdowns were a mess, remote work wasn't helping. Things were rough for a couple of years, of course, for Rocksteady. We also learned that Hill and Walker, the founders of Rocksteady, they were visited several times by Warner Brothers to pitch a live service game. And this, unfortunately, was Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Hill eventually said yes to this live service game. But again, they had never made a live service game before. They had always made single-player experiences, and I would call them, too, both a game and an experience. Again, these Arkham Knight series games, they're very well known, and people were very excited for this, but this wasn't in their wheelhouse. This wasn't what they were used to, and this also was a massive AAA game. Again, hundreds of millions to actually produce this, and then with, a year and a half delay on top of it, ultimately. And, this wasn't going very well. Hill eventually, did say yes, but, this just wasn't going great. A good portion of the studio, too, didn't want to make it, and so some of them left. Just before the game's release, Hill and Walker both left Rocksteady. They went and made 100 Star Games, which is a new studio. They're seen as a AAA. Their idea with 100 Stars to basically have 100 talented developers, and, that's ultimately what they're going to be sticking with. Kind of a smaller, tight-knit team to work together to make great games. And we've seen that with quite a few older studios that are now bigger that have trouble kind of making the better experiences, or even the same level of experiences that we've been hoping for. Like Bethesda. That's a great example. And so, when Hill and Walker made 100 Star, they took some of the devs with them. And this, again, didn't bode well for the game, because you have these developers that have been in the industry for quite a long time, and they certainly know a lot more about the engine they were working with, the development of the game, the past experience that they had, and they took that experience with them. Because I highly doubt the experience that left Rocksteady were the brand new people. I'm pretty sure the older, legendaries of the studio that had been there for quite some time, that all worked on the Batman Arkham games, I'm pretty sure the majority of those that left were those types of people, and not those that were just starting with the studio. Plus, we also learned about the live service aspects. The loot, the cosmetics, none of it really sounded right for the game. And again, it was like, what is Rocksteady doing? Like, this just sounds kind of crazy. This doesn't sound like them. But again, it was something they agreed to, and we all know now they shouldn't have agreed to that. Let's talk about the launch. So started with a 72-hour early access, and the game was broke right at the beginning. Upon launch, a notification showed that players had already beaten the game. So here they had paid $100 to beat the game instantly. That's a brand new one. Most of us actually like to play the game when we're starting it up, but hey, $100 to beat it instantly, that's crazy. So Rocksteady worked on taking the servers down to fix this issue. So again, it's just another example of early access just not panning out. You're buying the worst part of the game, the worst version of the game, and at the most expensive price, which just doesn't make sense. Finally, uh, playing folks learned pretty quickly that this game didn't meet their expectations. Suicide Squad was not a type of experience, was not a Justice League type of ideal like what they were thinking of. Um, yeah, the Justice League itself and also the Suicide Squad too. Both groups really didn't seem to make a ton of sense. Things were very generic. The gunplay. We even had cartoon shorts at the beginning, which again just felt kind of cheap. There was a generic feel to the gameplay because everybody had firearms. Captain Boomerang used guns. Harley Quinn used a whole bunch of different guns. Um, the shark character used guns as well, and it was just yeah, it kind of felt like everybody was dead shot. And even Deathstroke today, that's launching in January, we found out that he's going to be using guns too, and his way to move around is going to be super speed, just like the Flash, because of course that completely makes sense. Um, so yeah, it's just nothing is going right. The enemies too, they were also generic, repeated over and over. They were also easy to kill. They were just kind of mobs, just kind of like meat shields. And you just have to basically grind through these. There was no skill needed for the gameplay. The boss fights were pretty basic. They were the most cinematic part of the game. But again, they were just really basic. Kind of with like 2000 gameplay mechanics for boss fight. And this is like a AAA game. And again, none of this was coming off well. There were repeated quests, a lot of fetch quests that were just boring, very grindy, just felt like they were just burning your time. There were also more bugs, of course, throughout the game. People were discovering stuff all the time. The writing was bad. So, like, a great example is between Harley Quinn and Joker when we got season 1. Just nothing there whatsoever, which just didn't make any sense. And yeah, season 1 showed with the alternative Joker. It didn't seem like Joker. It seemed like a younger Joker, yes, but it wasn't the Joker that we knew. And many people rejected him. So again, if you don't like the character, you're not going to buy any of the cosmetics. You're not going to buy any microtransactions for that character. You're not going to grind them out. And that's horrible. And on top of all of this, you actually had to grind the character before you could play them. And then by the time you grinded everything, well, you have them now, and well, you already did everything, so what's the point? And you'd have to grind 15 to 20 hours to actually level up high enough to unlock the new character every season. They did this with the Joker. They did with, well, yeah, I'll get into that. Or you could just buy the Joker for $10. Why not? And again, I even see this mechanic in Call of Duty or other games where it's just like, hey, you can grind to death dozens of hours, or or a dozen hours at least, or you can just pay for it. We see this with guns. We see this with other characters. We see this with cosmetics or bundles or perks, whatever, depending on what the game is. And it wasn't either like these missions that you ground through were different. They were just the same ones you had already been playing. Just a double whammy. Just disrespect to the player, honestly. And then at the end of it all, we had a repeated boss fight. Every freaking season. So between the 4 main members of the Justice League, well, you basically got those boss fights again. Green Lantern, Batman, The Flash, Superman. You just repeated those boss fights. No changes, no differences in cosmetics, lighting, attacks, anything. It was absolutely carbon copy the same. Which is just, again, it's like, why? Like, why are you even doing this? Season 2 was worse. We had Mrs. Freeze, because we all, of course, know that character. Season 3 was Lawless, character we'd never heard of. And with Lawless, she was justified. She was trying to be justified in stealing stuff. I don't care if you're stealing from poor, rich, or middle-class people, or a company. You should not be stealing, period. It's wrong, okay? Just like killing somebody, right? You should not be doing that. That is wrong. It doesn't matter if it's illegal or not. It's wrong to do that. And, if we start having a society where it's like it's okay in some instances and not others, oh my word, we will become a lawless society, and we need to be careful with that. But yeah, so here we have, again, this wasn't necessarily supposed to be like a set of heroes or whatever. But yeah, Lawless and Mrs. Freeze and the Joker is just like, gosh, what are you people doing? This is so horrible. Deathstroke sounds like it's definitely going to be a better character. The aesthetic is there. The look is there. Like, they should have led with Deathstroke, in my opinion. Or at least definitely by the second one. But it's like, why couldn't they make all of these other characters like what we would expect? Deathstroke's from another universe, but he looks normal, okay? He's what we would expect from the character. But the Joker wasn't, Mrs. Freeze wasn't, and who the heck is Lawless? So it's just like, I don't understand what they were thinking or what they were doing, but yeah, it's just horrible. Also, none of this stuff, nothing in the game really looked good. Okay, it looked generic, it looked put together, CGI'd together, maybe, to a degree, because again, Metropolis was actually quite big, but even Metropolis itself didn't look big, or didn't look good, excuse me. We take a look at some of the older Batman Arkham Knight games, and wow, does it look good. Gotham looks wonderful. But again, we take a look at Metropolis, and it's like, it just looks like a generic city from like Infamous. Again, Infamous is a great series, but again, it's like there's a lot of aspects of this game that looked like it was from the 2000s, or even just the late 2000s, and not actually, in the 2020s. It just looked, crazy. And again, that would be acceptable from like a AA or even an indie developer or something. But this is over a $200 million project. AAA from Warner Brothers, a big publisher, and also from Rocksteady that we know and love that has made a beloved series. And it's like, what the heck is this? It's just a total shock. The numbers on Steam right away showed that the counts were very low for players, and the game actually got discounted pretty quickly. First it was 10, then it was 20. We saw also prices in stores like at Target, Fred Meyer, Walmart. They were all discounting the game too on the shelf pretty quickly. But yeah, Season 4 with Deathstroke, which looks great. They've also announced the end of the game already. So like it's made it 4 seasons. That's all it's going to be. There will be an offline mode. And that patch came out on December 10th. So there's already an offline mode patch that's available. That offline mode will work and function like it should when the servers actually go offline. So for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, the game was 90% off. $7. We actually saw an uptick on SteamDB, which was roughly, again, around 2,000 players. But after 2 days, it just completely fell off again. I think people that wanted to spend a little bit were curious, were like, wow, yeah, this game is garbage. And that's the end of that. I'm going to go play something else that's better. Let's take a look at the financials. In the earnings call that we had from Warner Brothers, we learned that Suicide Squad basically cost them $200 million. Now, they did get some money out of the game. Okay, there were some people that actually paid for this, some people that actually paid for the cosmetics and other microtransactions, or even just paid for the seasons so that they didn't have to grind through their character. But again, it wasn't enough. They still lost net $200 million, which was just crazy, And then Concord was like, hold my beer, basically, which again is just so ridiculous. Oh my gosh, this year. But yeah, we don't know if this $200 million includes the licensing or the marketing. All we know is that, quote, Suicide Squad cost us money, and there's really no way they can actually fix this or remedy this. It's just money that's gone. It's just vaporized. And so what we do know, though, is that there was actually more money lost earlier when they tried making the Suicide Squad game in-house. This is actually really interesting because, yeah, they had roughly 4 years of development of an earlier Suicide Squad game that just went down the drain. wasn't made by Rocksteady. It was actually made in-house for Warner Brothers. And again, they just couldn't make the project work. And so they still had the idea. They still wanted to try it. They were the movies, again, that first movie, $700 million plus. They were being successful with the IP. Hey, let's make a video game. Let's try it again, except we'll get someone else that's used to the DC universe, and we'll have them make the game. And again, it didn't matter. Man, if they, oh my gosh, if they had just said, look, Rocksteady, you've made DC games, just make the game. Suicide Squad, kill the Justice League, make the game how you want to make it. And if the publisher just got out of the freaking way and wasn't trying to convince Hill or Walker, hey, we need to make a live service game, I think it would have been fine. Let the like if the studio has a reputation for making a good game, then let them make the game. Get out of your own mother hubbin' way and just let them work, okay? Let them cook, because you haven't made the game, Warner Brothers, right? You already tried making the game, and you flushed another 4 years down the toilet before the game that we did get even came out. It's so ridiculous. We see this with Ubisoft. We've seen this with also some PlayStation developers. We've seen this too with Xbox developers. We've seen this with, yeah. Oh my gosh, man, I could go on for a while because it's so incredibly frustrating. But yeah, the publishers cannot get out of their own way. And they're the reason why these games generally suck. It's just, yeah, and it's just disheartening. It's just, yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So Rocksteady, they had quality assurance layoffs recently, and then Warner Brothers Montreal also laid off another 99 people. And this was recent. Okay, this was like this month. So, plus all of the folks that already quit before, that went to go make 100 Star, that went to go work for a totally different company, maybe got out of the industry entirely. Unfortunately, Rocksteady will never be the same. I mean, this, in my opinion, this has ultimately really damaged their reputation, and they're going to have to prove that they can make good games again. But again, the publishers need to get out of the way. So I think some of it is definitely the developers, that they have new talent. They're not as talented. The old talent has left, retired, whatever. I mean, we had tens of millions in 2 years in America of retirements just across the working class, including everybody. And some of those, too, of course, are game developers and publishers. So the old talent left that made these games that we loved in the 2000s and 2010s, and they are retired now, and they're making these other games, and it's like, what the frick is this? This is horrible. Tiny Tina's Wonderland, Anthem, Breakpoint, which is still fairly good, but it's not great. Concord, Skull and Bones, which isn't even an American studio. That's over in Singapore. But again, it's just like, and it wasn't just retirements in America, even though there are tens of millions here. There was also retirements all over the world. Like, if people could retire during COVID and the lockdowns, they were. It was record breaking in pretty much every country across the globe. And again, with that experience, well, you got to replace them with somebody else, and it's not the same studio anymore. And this too is kind of disheartening, because while we have this idea of really good studios that have made and built their reputation, this statement rings true more than ever. Things change. And unfortunately, enjoy it while it's good, baby. You know, different aspects of your life, your hobbies, your freedoms. I mean, all of that type of stuff very rarely does it improve, because ultimately those with influence and power want control. And that's what these publishers have been doing. They're like, look, we want to have control over this, that, and the other thing. You're going to be doing it this way. And the devs are like, what the frick are you doing? And then this, type of toxic positivity, like we've heard with multiple games, like with Suicide Squad, like with Tiny Tina's Wonderland, like with Concord, Skull and Bones. It's just frustrating. And yeah, they have to figure out something, because they can't keep losing money. And Hollywood, unfortunately, has already been on that path already. And now Hollywood's like, hey, we want to make game adaptations. And in my opinion, a lot of them suck. Last of Us was a good one. Fallout's TV show was a good one. Five Nights at Freddy's was a good one. Cyberpunk Edge Runner was a good one. But a lot of the others, man, they're just garbage. They don't follow the lore. They're changing and tweaking stuff like Twisted Metal, Halo TV show. I'm trying to think here. Tomb Raider Lara Croft animated series. I'm not excited for Minecraft. Man, yeah, there's just been many. There's been quite a few that have been canceled as well because, again, just production isn't going well. They don't think they're going to make any money at it. And, yeah, there's been quite a few that have actually been canceled. So, honestly, the runners-up for Game of the Year, Suicide Squad is still my pick, but, like, these ones are close. But, like, Skull and Bones, Concord, and Unknown 9. But ultimately, I chose Suicide Squad because it had the biggest hype and became the biggest disappointment. That gap between expectations versus reality was, I think, the biggest gap compared to any other game this year. The hype for Concord, which didn't really happen, the hype for Skull and Bones, the hype for Star Wars Outlaws, or Avatar, maybe. God, what were some other games this year that just totally bombed? I'm drawing a blank. It's almost 4 a.m. But it's wild. You know, all of these games had disappointments, didn't meet expectations. But I think Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League had the biggest. Because, again, it was Rocksteady. It was an IP that everybody knew. How could they mess this up? And, man, were we dead wrong. We were super dead wrong. And, too, the hype was building for over 2 years. Because, again, we had basically about 1.5 years of delays. And so, yeah, when Suicide Squad finally came out, it's just like, wow, this is just not it. And I can't think of any other game that just ultimately beats this level of disappointment for a lot of players. I mean, the game was just such a shocking revelation on how bad it was that people just made money on their channel for just how horrible it was and just how shocking and how much money they lost. I mean, it was insane. And I think, too, it's grown into perspective for some people how much games actually cost. And I think the failures of these games in the last several years, I think ultimately it's going to change how things go forward. And we've had a lot of new studios start up. Again, like 100 Star, like Giant Skull, like Bad Brain Games. I wish I could remember some others. But there's been a ton of new studios that have started because, again, they want to go back to the way things were and make the games they want to make instead of the publishers having so much control. So, yeah, and they just want to make their own IPs. They don't want a publisher. They don't want, that type of influence. They just want to go and make their game. So we'll see what happens at the end of the decade because that's probably when a lot of these games are going to come out. Is roughly next gen. So, yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, big budget, a AAA game, a favored and loved studio, and a liked IP, and none of that mattered. Isn't that just amazing? Isn't that amazing? Like, all of that put together, and again, it just was not executed well. The studio made a game they weren't used to making, they didn't want to make. There was no heart and soul in this game, which it's really easy to tell. There was also DEI in there, so again, there were changing of these characters or alterations that we didn't like that a lot of players rejected. And again, it was a game we didn't ask for. And this is why we should take a grain of salt with every game, even with like Exodus or Crimson Desert or even with Indiana Jones that just came out recently. It's like we should take a look at these actual games first, not just from reviewers, okay, not just from trailers and gameplay that they choose to show us. We should actually see someone stream and play a game and actually see if it's for us or not. Because when it's $70 now, it's expensive. Let me tell you, it's expensive playing these games. And when a game totally bombs and just sucks like Veilguard, ugh, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Again, some people enjoyed it, and if you're one of the ones that enjoyed Concord, that liked Concord, Suicide Squad, Skull and Bones, Veilguard, it's okay. Like that's not the issue here. The issue is that I don't think these publishers know their audience very well. And if there are some people that enjoyed these games, and that's perfectly okay. Everybody has their preferences, and we're all gamers here. We should respect that. But man, do these studios feel out of touch? And if they're not going to listen to us, maybe they're going to listen to the amount of money that they're losing. So, with that, folks, that is my worst game of the year. Thanks for tuning in. You can always follow me at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. Also, don't forget Discord, Twitter X, and also Twitch. You can go ahead and sub over at Twitch if you want to see everything there first. Because, yeah, otherwise I just take the VOD files, gussy them up a little bit, and then put them over at YouTube. And that's most of the stuff, probably 95% of it. The other 5% I never post to YouTube because I don't think it'll be viewed much, maybe, or won't be cared about too much. And so, yeah, and it is time putting these vids together and doing stuff. Like just streaming it, like right now, is just part of the process. But anyway, if you like what you see here, like, sub, all that jazz. If you have subbed, make sure you are still subbed. Sometimes YouTube likes to unsub people. I'm even noticing that now, which is kind of frustrating. And then also to be sure to share the content. If you think someone else would enjoy this, go ahead and send it over to them. I appreciate that. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed Christmas. Oh man, mine was busy. Oh my word. But anyway, I'm through it. I can calm down a little bit now, and hopefully we can all enjoy New Year's. Also, too, Lion and I are going to do our 2024 recap. So we did a recap for 2023. We had some predictions, and yeah, we'll kind of talk about how 2024 was, and we'll try to keep it an hour or less. But yeah, we'll have to see, so stay tuned for that. So there's other stuff out there too. There's playthroughs, there's other gaming news once a week, all sorts of stuff. You can go ahead and click through the playlist on YouTube and search for all of that. So with that, folks, I'll see you guys on the next one.